My CEO wife, Victoria Ashwood, told me she was on a business trip, but she was actually pregnant with her childhood sweetheart's child. This is a strategic alliance to solidify our market position. How could a pauper like you understand? It was your good fortune that I married you. Can't you even tolerate me having another man's child? Disheartened, I left the company to find my own way. Later, after her assets were seized and she was filled with regret, she begged me to remarry her. I held my girlfriend's hand and kept my distance. Sorry, I'm not in your league anymore. I stood frozen, holding the custom-made anniversary ring, staring blankly at the familiar figure across the way. Hadn't Victoria gone on a business trip? What was she doing here, and who was the man standing next to her? They were nestled together, talking and laughing. The man even had his hand on her waist in an intimate gesture. When our eyes met, Victoria's smile froze. She instinctively raised a hand to cover her stomach. Only then did I notice her belly was visibly swollen. She looked to be 5 or 6 months pregnant. Victoria, didn't you say you were on a business trip? I didn't even realize my own voice was trembling. She took a step forward, a flash of panic in her eyes, but she quickly reverted to her usual condescending demeanor, telling me to go home immediately and not to embarrass her here. But the man beside her had no intention of letting me leave. He strode forward and blocked my path. Mr. Clark, is it? I'm Ethan Blackwood, chairman of the Blackwood Group. I'm your wife's childhood sweetheart, and also the father of the child in her belly. I heard a sharp gasp from nearby. I knew he was trying to intimidate me. A pleasure. I extended my hand and could feel him deliberately squeezing it, his eyes full of provocation. Without another glance at them, I turned and walked straight home, collapsing onto the sofa. Victoria and I had been married for 5 years with no children. There was an accidental pregnancy once, but before I could even beg her to keep it, she had scheduled an abortion. Sincere Clark, I'm a CEO. A pregnancy means the company grinds to a halt. Don't you dare try to tie me down with a child. As a live-in son-in-law, I had no right to ask her to keep the baby. I just quietly made her chicken soup to help her recover. After that, we gradually grew physically distant until she told me she was going on a business trip abroad and would be gone for a year. That last night, she was incredibly tender, resting her head on my chest. Wait for me to come back, she'd whispered, and we'll celebrate our anniversary. I was ecstatic. I even secretly ordered a new ring. I never imagined the so-called business trip was a lie, and the year-long absence was just an excuse to have a baby. The cigarette burned my fingertips, and it took me a long moment to snap out of my daze. I heard the front door open. Victoria stared at me with disgust. You know I'm pregnant. Are you trying to make a point by smoking? So, I didn't even have that right anymore. Considering the baby, I silently stubbed out the cigarette. I just asked her why she lied to me. We had an arranged childhood engagement. This is a marriage alliance between our families, with benefits you can't even imagine. I'm already married to you, so what's wrong with having a child to secure the lineage and let him inherit both family fortunes? She spoke as if she was perfectly justified, blaming me for being unreasonable. But I didn't care about the fortune. I just wanted to know if she had ever loved me. What about our child? You can get pregnant for him, so why not for me? My eyes were red, my voice shaking. A look of bewilderment crossed Victoria's face, her tone laced with impatience. He's a multi-millionaire. What are you? I married you because you saved my life. That was an immense blessing. Now you want a child? Don't you think you're being ridiculous? Her words struck me like lightning. I froze on the spot, unable to move. No man could endure that. The word divorce escaped my lips. Pathetic. A loud slam echoed through the house, and then silence. I went to a law firm, had a divorce agreement drawn up, and headed to the Ashwood family company. The once bustling office fell quiet the moment I walked in. Well, look who it is. Sincere Clark. What brings the CEO's husband to the office? Husband? She's already having another man's kid. He'll probably be replaced soon. So everyone knew Victoria was pregnant. They had all been lying to me. Since I had no intention of staying with her anyway, I walked right up to the gossiping colleague, Leo Fisher, and threw a punch. He stumbled and fell to the floor with a thud. He'd always resented me for easily landing a project he couldn't handle. This was my chance to let it all out. You're just a goddamn kept man. Acting all high and mighty, you deserve to be cheated on. I swung my fist again. Colleagues scattered in panic, the scene descending into chaos. I was beating the man senseless. He had no strength to fight back. Sincere Clark, what is this insane stunt? Stop it right now. I slowly turned to see Victoria standing behind me, her clothes disheveled. 2 bright red marks were visible on her neck, while Ethan Blackwood adjusted his tie beside her. The atmosphere was thick with intimacy. Everyone knew what had just happened. Leo is right. You really are incompetent, Ethan said. If it weren't for Victoria, you probably wouldn't have your position. Hearing Ethan's words, I couldn't help but give a bitter smile, my eyes fixed on Victoria. To prove I wasn't just a kept man, I had once closed a $500,000 deal by drinking with a department manager until my stomach bled. And just like that, he dismissed all my efforts with a single sentence. Victoria looked down on me, her eyes filled with contempt and disdain. She had no intention of defending me. Sincere, you're the one making a scene. My heart turned to ash. I wiped the blood from the corner of my mouth, pulled the divorce agreement from my briefcase and placed it in front of her. You two are a perfect match. It was my mistake to get in the way. Let's get a divorce. Victoria froze for a second, seemingly surprised that I was serious, her fine brows furrowed. Can you stop this nonsense? My pregnancy with Ethan is just an arrangement. Once the baby is born, you and I will still be husband and wife. Besides, if you leave me, where else are you going to make this kind of money? She was wrong. I never married her for her money. Beside her, Ethan tilted his head back arrogantly, his voice cold. Everyone in the family knows Victoria found herself a wimp of a husband. It seems the rumors are true. You really are pathetic. Whispers erupted behind me as my colleagues took out their phones, murmuring to each other. Victoria's pupils constricted, and she bit her lip, silent. How could someone as proud as her stand being at the center of a scandal? Sign it. You don't want your child to be born with the stigma of being illegitimate, do you? That remark hit her where it hurt. She snatched a pen from a nearby desk, signed the papers, and threw them in front of me. Mark my words, Clark. You'll regret this day. I took a deep breath and walked out of the office amidst the chorus of mockery. Back at our mansion, I packed my few belongings. The anniversary ring sat quietly on the coffee table. Victoria, I won't be chasing after you this time. I rented a small apartment and opened my phone, staring blankly at our wedding photo. Meeting Victoria had been like something out of a movie. She was waiting for a car by the roadside and was nearly hit by street racers. At the last second, I pulled her into my arms, saving her. I later found out that her car had mysteriously broken down that day and had been towed for repairs, which is why she was there. We were friends for a year before I met her parents and learned how wealthy she was. At the time, she defied everyone to be with me, and I worked my way up from the bottom to a manager position on my own merit. Ethan's appearance made me realize just how vast the gap between us truly was. We're divorced now. We shouldn't be in contact. I deleted all our photos together and was scrolling through my social media feed to ask my buddy Mark out for a drink. Then I saw a post from Victoria, welcoming our baby's arrival. In the photo, she and Ethan were holding an ultrasound picture. The background was a high-end hotel room, filled not only with cases of cash and gold bars, but also all sorts of baby supplies. It was obvious how much they were looking forward to the child's arrival. I just liked the post and quickly scrolled past. Not long after, I got a call from my mom, Helen. She said a group of men had shown up at their house, thrown 2 briefcases of cash at them, and told them to get as far away as possible. Before leaving, they even pushed my dad, Robert, who was now resting in the hospital. My heart sank. I rushed over to my parents' house, went to the hospital to explain everything, and then threw the money in the trunk of my car. Damn you, Ethan Blackwood. This was a clear provocation. I used the location tag on Victoria's post to find the hotel, stormed up to the 5th floor with the 2 cases of cash, and threw them at Ethan, not forgetting to kick him in the stomach. In an instant, red bills flew everywhere, mixing with the rose petals on the floor, a jarring sight. Sincere Clark, are you insane? Coming here to cause trouble again. How could I have been so blind to ever fall for you? Victoria rushed to Ethan's side, anxiously checking his injuries. If anything happens to Ethan, I'll never forgive you. I tried to lunge at him again, but was stopped by his bodyguards. Ethan raised a hand, signaling them to let me go. He stood up with Victoria's help, a cold smirk on his face. I know you're upset about the baby, but Victoria needs to rest. If you have a problem, take it up with me. Don't frighten her. If I didn't know what he'd done, I might have been fooled by his hypocritical facade. I turned my head and pleaded with her. "Victoria, he's not as good as you think. Just a little while ago, his men went to my parents' house and pushed my dad. He's in the hospital right now." I thought she would be moved, but her eyes only showed exhaustion and impatience, as if she had reached her limit. "That's enough. Ethan is not that kind of person. There's a limit to your lies. Whatever happened to your dad is his own problem. What does it have to do with Ethan?" Her words stunned me. For the 4 years we were married, my parents had treated her like their own daughter, yet her attitude was so vile. A cunning glint flashed in Ethan's eyes as he shot me a provocative look. It turned out I had been the one who was blind. I smiled faintly, all feelings for her gone. "Control your husband," I said coldly, "and tell him to stop bothering me." Victoria's face went pale as she stared at me, speechless. I got a call from my family and quickly left the hotel for the hospital. Any lingering attachment I had for Victoria vanished in that moment. I looked at my parents, ashamed, and apologized to them. When I married Victoria, they had been against it, thinking the gap between our families was too wide and would easily lead to cracks in our relationship. I was so lost in love back then, I thought we could conquer anything. "Mom," I said, "I've decided to take your advice. I'll get in touch with Grace Miller." Chapter 2. Grace was the daughter of one of my mom's friends. We were originally supposed to be set up on a blind date, but by a twist of fate, I met Victoria, and Grace ended up marrying someone else. Just 2 months ago, she divorced her husband due to domestic abuse. While my dad was in the hospital, she took care of him with incredible dedication. Even the other patients praised her, calling her a wonderful daughter-in-law. To thank her, I took her out to dinner. We hit it off, and our relationship quickly grew. I discovered we had many common interests. We had even graduated from the same university, and our apartments were just a street apart. 2 months later, we naturally started dating. Today was our 100-day anniversary. I bought a cake and we went to a barbecue restaurant. She always maintained a passion for life and never shied away from celebrating any occasion. Victoria was the complete opposite. My picture never appeared on her social media, and she even spent her birthdays alone at home without inviting me. Over time, I learned not to bother. As I was lost in thought, Grace had already deftly placed the candles on the cake and was quietly making a wish. My eyes welled up. We blew out the candles together. Just then we heard an argument from not far away. I turned to see Victoria, her belly large, shouting hysterically, "Ethan Blackwood, how could you transfer my company's assets without my permission? If I hadn't checked the financial statements, how long were you planning to hide this from me?" I was just as confused as she was. I didn't understand Ethan's motive. Ethan slowly stood up, calm and composed. "The baby you're carrying is a girl. What good will she be in the future? My mother said you must give birth to a son. Otherwise, who will inherit the Blackwood family fortune? How can you manage a company while you're pregnant and raising a child? It's better to transfer it to my name so the assets can be put to good use." I never would have thought Ethan thought this way. He was clearly just trying to seize her family's assets, treating her like a baby machine and taking advantage of her pregnancy to swallow her company. It wasn't just me, the other diners gasped in shock. Victoria swayed, barely able to believe it. She gripped the handrail, tears welling in her eyes, and clutched his sleeve, crying, "This is my family's business and I'm carrying your child. You can't do this to me." But Ethan couldn't care less. With a cold snort, he brushed her hand away and left. Victoria lost her footing and fell to the ground, letting out a pained cry. Grace couldn't just sit there. She cursed under her breath and pulled me into the middle of the crowd. She screamed when she saw the blood pooling between Victoria's legs and immediately called 911. Soon Victoria was carried out on a stretcher. Out of basic human decency, Grace and I went with her in the ambulance. The smell of blood filled my nostrils. Victoria was barely conscious. A paramedic called Ethan's number, only to be met with a cold male voice. "She's quite the actress, even got a doctor to lie for her. I don't have time for her games." The line went dead. We all looked at each other, stunned. No one could have imagined that the seemingly refined Ethan Blackwood could be so ruthless behind the scenes. I watched as 2 streams of tears rolled down Victoria's cheeks. The ambulance sped to the hospital. She was rushed into the operating room, and about half an hour later, the baby was born. It was a girl. Grace was happily cooing at the baby, while I stood by awkwardly, never having imagined my ex and my current girlfriend would meet like this. Victoria, pale with sweat beading on her forehead, was moved from the operating room back to her ward. She held the baby with a look of pure love. I tugged on Grace's arm, wanting to leave this messy situation, but Victoria called out to me, "Sincere, thank you." Her voice was gentler than I'd ever heard it. She offered a slight smile, which made her look even more fragile and pitiful. My expression remained neutral. I intertwined my fingers with Grace's, felt Victoria's dark gaze on us, and said firmly, "It was my girlfriend who saved you. You should be thanking her." Victoria seemed surprised by my firmness, a stark contrast to my past self. She looked at me pitifully. "Sincere, you're still angry with me, aren't you? Do you want to see the baby? She looks a lot like me. Didn't you say you wanted to have a child with me?" I almost laughed in her face. Did she not realize I had witnessed the entire scene at the restaurant and had no feelings left for her? After she spoke, I felt Grace stiffen beside me, as if she had sensed something. To reassure her, I coldly refused. Sincere, it was my mistake. I was naive and trusted Ethan. He deceived me, played me for a fool. "I'm so sorry. Can we talk, just the two of us?" I took a deep breath and said sternly, "Victoria, my girlfriend saved you today. You should be thanking her, not saying these things to me." My shouting stunned Victoria. A hint of apology entered her eyes as she expressed her gratitude to Grace. "Thank you for saving me. I'll give you a reward. It's just, I got too emotional seeing him. I'm sure you don't mind, right? She really thought money could solve everything. I won't take your money. And I hope you'll have some self-respect, Miss Ashwood." Grace shot her a cold glare, then took my arm and we left. Once we were outside the hospital, she stomped her foot in frustration. To soothe her, I bought some fresh pastries and drove her to the beach, where I told her the whole story. How we met, fell in love, and finally divorced, never to see each other again. I stroked her hair affectionately. "Don't overthink it. I'm never going to leave you." But Grace still felt uneasy, her eyes glistening with tears. We had both been hurt in love before. I understood her sensitivity and insecurities. So, I decided to rent a venue and propose to her, to give her the security she needed. On the day of the proposal, my friends, including Mark, helped me decorate the venue. The floor was covered in roses and balloons, a testament to my devotion. The music started. Grace was led to the center of the stage, blindfolded. My hands trembled with nervousness. When she took off the blindfold, we looked at each other, our eyes filled with tears. "Will you marry me?" She burst into tears of joy, nodded, and fell into my arms. Confetti cannons exploded, and everyone applauded. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw an uninvited guest. Victoria, wearing a white dress identical to Grace's, stood in the corner, staring at me. She walked towards me, the crisp sound of her high heels drawing everyone's attention. "Sorry," she said, stopping in front of me. "I couldn't reach you, so this was the only way." I held Grace's hand tightly. What was she doing? We were divorced. Why was she still pestering me? My friends couldn't stand it either and began to criticize her. I heard the Ashwood family's assets were all seized. It was all over the entertainment news, and someone said that Ethan Blackwood is a philanderer who hangs out in seedy places, a total mess. If you ask me, she regrets it and wants Sincere back. Victoria remained unfazed by the gossip. On the contrary, she shed her pride and nodded. "That's right. I am here to get Sincere Clark back. This is my family's venue. Did you consider my feelings when you planned your proposal here?" I was stunned and looked at my friend, Mark, in disbelief. He had chosen the venue for me. How could it have been hers? Mark was just as shocked. He clearly had no idea. I told her it was just a coincidence. "But I think it's fate, just like how you saved me twice. My life has been yours for a long time." She was an expert at twisting things. I didn't answer her. Instead, I turned to Grace with a look of pure affection. She said, "Yes, I'm taking you home." As we passed her, she grabbed my sleeve. Her fingertips were ice cold. "Sincere, I started regretting it the day after we separated. But you deleted my contact information. I couldn't find you. Seeing you that day, I felt like I was alive again. I neglected you in the past. I still have some money left. Let me make it up to you, okay?" Her words were sincere, and large tears fell onto my wrist. The cold wind whipped through her thin dress, making her look pitiful and fragile. This was the first time she had ever cried for me. In the past, I might have softened, but now I wasn't alone. I didn't marry you for money, and I certainly won't remarry you for it. A high society marriage, a match of equals. Isn't that what you always talked about? What happened? Got cheated out of your fortune and now you remember my good qualities? Ethan didn't treat you well, so you come running back to me. Why should I always be waiting for you?" I pulled my arm free. Victoria sank to the ground, her shoulders trembling as she sobbed quietly. Politeness dictated I should help her up, but to avoid any more entanglement, I didn't move. There are too many people here, and it's cold on the rooftop. You should go home, stop harassing me. I gave Grace a reassuring look and walked towards the exit. Then I heard a shout from behind me. "Sincere Clark, you'll regret this." It was followed by a splash. Victoria had jumped. My blood ran cold. I was paralyzed. My friend screamed and rushed to the railing to look. We were on the rooftop, about 4 stories high, with a large infinity pool below. Victoria had landed right in the pool. "Quick, save her, she can't swim," someone shouted. A waiter from downstairs bravely jumped into the pool. It took 3 people to chaotically pull her out. Everyone rushed to the edge of the pool to check on her. Victoria was soaked, her hair plastered to her cheeks. The thin dress clung to her curves, and the men around us started murmuring. She slowly came to, her eyes looking at me with sorrow. Out of concern, Grace took off my suit jacket and threw it over her. "I feel sorry for you. You can keep the jacket, but please don't bother us again. No matter what stunts she pulled next, I wouldn't pay her any mind." Her sudden appearance had ruined the proposal. I felt Grace's spirits drop, but I couldn't think of any way to make it up to her. To my surprise, Grace wasn't angry. She hugged me tightly and said, "The fact that she's still chasing you just proves what a good person you were. I didn't make a mistake choosing you. As long as it didn't affect our relationship, that was all that mattered." I breathed a sigh of relief and started planning the wedding with Grace's parents. Half a month flew by in a blur of activity. Mark came to me, full of apologies about the proposal venue, hoping I wasn't angry. Then he leaned in conspiratorially. "Have you heard? Ethan transferred all of the Ashwood family's assets. Now their company is full of his spies. The old employees are miserable and quitting in droves." I was shocked. I had no idea. Mark said it had become an open secret in their industry. Everyone was talking about the corporate takeover, and Victoria had become the subject of endless gossip. Ethan is basically untouchable in the manufacturing sector now. No one can stand against him. Some companies are even sending young women to him just to get on his good side. How had it come to this? I paused my work, feeling a sense of melancholy. Victoria had always been so proud, never tolerating any slight. How could she accept her husband bringing different women home? I heard she's trying to divorce him, but he won't agree. They're at a standstill, and it's getting really ugly. The Blackwood family scandal was all over the news. As the biggest beneficiary, of course Ethan wouldn't agree to a divorce. I shook my head with a bitter smile, marveling at the complexity of people. "By the way, my wedding is in 2 weeks. When you guys share the news, please don't let them find out. I don't want any more trouble." Mark nodded and went back to helping me with the preparations. When night fell, I dragged my exhausted body home. I bumped into someone head-on. Without looking up, I quickly apologized. Then I heard a familiar voice. "Sincere, are you okay?" Chapter 7. It was Victoria, shivering in the cold wind, her lips pale. The Victoria I remembered was never this disheveled and distraught. My feelings were a complicated mix. "I've been waiting for you for a long time. I'm so glad I finally found you." She forced a smile, which only made her look more fragile. Her eyes were filled with heartbreak as a tear rolled down her cheek. Can I come inside for a bit?" Thinking of Grace, I shook my head. As her fiancé, I wouldn't create any situation that could be misunderstood and hurt her. Victoria seemed to understand my resolve. A self-deprecating smile touched her lips. All this time, I was being deceived by my colleagues. "I never knew you drank yourself sick to close that deal. I misunderstood you. I'm sorry." She bowed her head sincerely, seeking my forgiveness. A dull ache started in my stomach, but I felt a sense of detachment. So that was it. That's why she thought I had only gotten ahead through connections, and why her attitude towards me had plummeted. The credit for my hard work, once erased, was now being acknowledged, but it no longer stirred any emotion in me. "It's fine. I've already forgotten about it." I didn't want to dwell on the past, but Victoria seemed determined to rekindle my memories. "I didn't know Ethan went to your parents' house behind my back and hurt your father. I will go and compensate them." I cut her off with a cold laugh, sizing her up. "Compensate them with what? Everyone knows the Ashwood family is finished. You're broke." Her face turned ashen. I had hit a nerve, and she fell silent. "Victoria, your biggest mistake is thinking money can solve everything. In the 4 years we were married, I barely spent any of your money. Don't you understand a simple truth? The more I used to love you, the more I can't stand you now." My shouting made her tears fall freely, and she whimpered like a wounded animal. As she wiped her tears, I accidentally glanced at her hand and saw the white diamond on her finger. It was the engagement ring I had prepared. "Sincere, I've worn it ever since. I've never taken it off. Every night I'm filled with regret. If it had been you, you would never have neglected me. You wouldn't have spent your nights carousing and pressuring me to have a son. I'm the one who lost you." Her expression was earnest, her tone more serious than ever before. "But I didn't need it anymore. My dad still has a smaller company. I've sold it. Let's get back together. We can use the money to start a new business and make a comeback. With our talents, we can definitely build something great." I just found it laughable. "Aren't you afraid I'll just take your money and leave again?" Her expression was firm. She said she would be willing, even if I did. But I had no desire to repeat my past mistakes. "Sorry, I'm not good enough for you." Victoria froze, her faint smile faltering. She had clearly expected me to come back. I pried her fingers off my arm and walked resolutely towards the apartment building entrance. A shout came from behind me. She had pulled out a sharp knife and was holding it to her neck. "If you don't remarry me, I'll kill myself right here." I stopped but didn't turn around. "If you have the courage to die for me, then you have the courage to face the world, divorce him, and start a new life. Don't disappoint your parents." Amidst her sobs, the knife clattered to the ground. I knew she had given up. A light rain began to fall. I don't know how long Victoria stood out there. When I looked out the window again, she was gone. The wedding preparations were exhausting, keeping me busy from dawn till dusk. I fell into a deep sleep and woke up late the next morning. We had an appointment with the wedding photographer. As we were about to start the outdoor shoot, 4 or 5 men in suits approached, surrounding a couple. The man was casually groping the woman, with no sense of shame. Grace's face twisted in disgust. In public, too. How shameless, it's disgusting. I followed her gaze, the words of agreement dying on my lips. Wasn't that Ethan Blackwood? What a coincidence. As if sensing my gaze, Ethan turned his head. Our eyes met, and a look of surprise and amusement crossed his face. He pushed away his bodyguards and his female companion and walked over to me. "Well, Mr. Clark, you certainly work fast. It's only been a short while, and you're already getting remarried. I wonder if she knows about your past?" He was deliberately trying to provoke me. I wrapped my arm around Grace and smiled nonchalantly. "We fell in love freely and know everything about each other's pasts. Unlike Mr. Blackwood, who is never without a flock of women. My jab didn't seem to bother him. In fact, he looked proud. In his mind, the more women he had, the more glorious it was. I hear Victoria's always pestering you. Whenever she cries to me about it, I tell her she deserves it. She's the one who made a poor choice. Who can she blame? You managed to live with that stupid woman for 4 years. That's quite an accomplishment." My eyelid twitched. I resisted the urge to punch him. "You used her love for you to swallow her family's assets," I scoffed. "A truly brilliant scheme." He was about to retort when someone behind him whispered something. His expression changed instantly, his eyes turning fierce as he clenched his jaw. "That damn woman, tell the company I'm on my way back. Let's see what kind of trouble she can stir up this time." Furious, Ethan shot me one last glare and turned to leave. He quickly got into a stretched Rolls-Royce and disappeared into the crowd. Could it be that Victoria had made a new move? I mulled it over, but couldn't figure it out, so I pushed it to the back of my mind and continued with the photo shoot. It wasn't until that evening, when I checked my phone, that I saw Mark's message. I invited him out for dinner. Mark was a chatterbox who couldn't keep a secret. After a few drinks, he leaned in conspiratorially and asked if I knew what was happening with the Blackwood Group. I shook my head, telling him only about our encounter that afternoon. He puffed out his chest, his tone slightly proud. "I heard Victoria pulled a move that hurt her enemy by 1,000, but cost her 800. She exposed her own company's past tax evasion and then reported Ethan for massive tax fraud and bribing officials. The authorities are launching a full-scale investigation. The whole company is in chaos." Grace and I were stunned. We couldn't believe she was capable of such a drastic act. It seemed Victoria had finally had enough and resorted to this desperate, bold measure. Strangely enough, even though we were no longer in each other's lives, I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction for her. It meant she had finally learned to fight back. Thinking of Ethan's arrogant face, I smiled. I decided to add some fuel to the fire. Let's make it burn even brighter. Ethan's company was thoroughly investigated. The case involved many people, and the business was forced to shut down for rectification. I scoured the news and leaked stories about his chaotic personal life. A construction worker he had previously worked with posted on social media about unpaid wages. I hired a lawyer for him, free of charge, to help him get his money. He led a large group of workers to protest in front of the company headquarters, creating a massive scene. At the same time, I posted the old medical report from my father's injury online, along with security footage from my parents' building of Ethan's bodyguards causing trouble. When netizens saw this, a new wave of outrage erupted against him. CEO childhood sweetheart steals another man's wife and assaults his parents. I can't believe someone so shameless exists. Forcibly took over the Ashwood family fortune. These corporate tycoons are truly on another level. Careful, or Mr. Blackwood will track you down through the internet and beat you up too. The online discussions were overwhelming. The Blackwood Group's stock plummeted. The situation was grim. Grace and I would check our phones from time to time, happily keeping up with the latest developments. Soon, our wedding day arrived. She stood before me, just as she had on the day of the proposal, her smile radiant, her eyes full of love. In front of the officiant and all our guests, we hugged, we kissed, and we declared our love for each other. For some reason I felt a sense of unease, my heart pounding in my chest. I glanced into the corner and saw a figure standing there. But this time, Victoria didn't cause a scene. As I stared in shock, she held up a red envelope, handed it to the person collecting gifts, and then stood quietly in the corner, watching the entire ceremony. Under the spotlight, her cheeks glistened with tears. At the exact moment the officiant pronounced us married, she looked me in the eye and slipped the ring back onto her own ring finger. For a moment I was at a loss for words. When I had loved her, she hadn't cherished it. Now that I had moved on, she reappeared. What was the point? After the ceremony, as Grace and I were making our rounds to toast the guests, I saw Grace suddenly move. She took 2 glasses of wine and walked towards the corner. She was going to talk to Victoria. I expected them to argue, but to my surprise, Grace was gracious. They looked at each other, smiled, and drank their wine in one gulp. Victoria then picked up another glass and walked over to me. I saw everything you posted. I'm sorry, and thank you. The Blackwood Group is finished now. I've decided to leave this city and live on my own from now on. I wish you happiness. The strong liquor burned its way down my throat as I watched her leave. Years passed, and the old grievances faded. The next time I heard news of them, Grace was in my arms, playing with our child. A friend told me that all of Ethan's assets had been seized. He had become the scapegoat for the tax evasion and a series of other crimes and was now serving time in prison. As for Victoria, she had completely disappeared. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. Even her parents couldn't find her and had reported her missing. Gone. I remembered what she had said before she left, but I couldn't guess where she might have gone. Oh well, everyone has their own destiny.